Hey folks, my name's Rene Enriquez, and you are watching Uncensored.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Bootser. Black Hand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
Hey folks, my name's Rene Enriquez, and you are watching Uncensored. Well, we have another episode 4 on Chino Peanut Butter. Or, as we affectionately call him, Stutter Butter. In fact, I'm going to run the last segment of his interview, and I know there was a lot of comments in the comment section from all the viewers about the appropriateness of participating in such an extensive interview with cops when he's a mate carnal, and he knew the consequences of speaking with the cops. But again, as I've said before, and I'll say again in the future, Carnales break the rules, right? Had it been a normal camarada and he had acknowledged other people being members and some of the things he said, he would have been eliminated. And that's just a fact, right? But Carnales can break the rules, and they do break the rules. Was it wise for him to participate in that interview, in the entirety of this interview? No. Like, one of the simplest things to do is invoke your Fifth Amendment right. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination, I am not trying to advise criminals how to avoid being prosecuted. I'm not doing that. But it's common knowledge to everybody that you can invoke, you're entitled to, in Miranda versus Arizona, your Fifth Amendment right. That's why they read you your rights. You have the right to refuse participation in any interview. And being as knowledgeable as he was about the law, and Chino Robert Ruiz was not very smart. He was not very smart. He was a product of his environment with a seventh grade education, and all he knew was prison and drugs, right, and drinking. That's a reality. But he lived in the world, he existed in this world, and he knew the rules that apply to members and camaradas, right? And then he chose to break those rules. But he could. He could without repercussion because of his socio-political status in the organization. And he wasn't this monolithic giant in the organization. Like I said, when I met him, he was just an older carnal, and I gave him his props, and that was it, right? He became one later when he went to Mexico. That's when he came into his own. That's when he grew into his skin. He found his niche, and he excelled at it. And that was bringing people together, communicating with the Bay, and creating ties with CJNG, Cartel de Jalisco Nuevo Generación. He was a direct tie to them, him and Jerry Tapia. In fact, when he got arrested for this, he was going to be indicted. You know, there was going to be a strong legal defense that he wasn't in possession of it. He had no knowledge of the bulletproof vest and the methamphetamine that was found in close proximity to him. But I would think that the government would have brought experts in, including the letter to Happy from West Covina about Happy, trying to clean up the controversy that was supposedly to be sent to Sana. They would have brought in experts to tie Chino to the conspiracy, right? Being a member, he had to have knowledge of what was in the house, and blah blah blah. That's just how it works, right? But there would have been a strong legal defense as well. In fact, had he not died, Chino would have been indicted in dirty thirds. But unfortunately, he passed away in Mexico. So we all know that. In fact, here's a picture of his funeral. Carnales attending his gravesite, and Chino in the casket. May he rest in peace, and I sincerely mean that. But he became this huge figure in Mexico, like PB. Everybody was talking about PB. In fact, we ran a previous call with Dopey Hinojos, where he has a conversation with PB. He's his secretary. Dopey is Chino's secretary. And Chino is in communication with all the prison main yards. In fact, he was a main conduit. In one conversation we heard also on Past the Wire, they had an established protocol for communication. It would go to Chino Peanut Butter, the Ayala brothers, and then to the main lines. And they would disseminate information to all the carnadas and camaradas. That's when the messes were existing on the yards, right? And then Pelican Bay was looped into that too. So there was a real protocol, and Chino became part of that. And he became very, very proficient at this. Because he was a people person. I mean, he was gregarious, he was a jokester, and he got along well with people, and he always gave people the benefit of the doubt. So he's arrested in West Valley. We know that. This interview is going down. He's participating. You're going to hear the last segment of it, and I want everybody to understand this, right? They didn't want to prosecute Chino. They didn't want to prosecute him. He was an old man. He said it straight out. You got a few years left. You still help. Talamantes tells him you're still healthy. You're going to spend a few years fighting this case. They did not want to prosecute him. They were throwing him a life preserver. In fact, a lot of people don't see it that way, right? But they were giving him the opportunity to get out. That was them extending the olive branch, saying, okay, come on over. We'll help you out. But you're going to have to flip. Aren't you tired of this? You hear that in the last segment. Chino, true gangster, stuck to his gun, said, no, I'm going to have to rat. No, he didn't. Not understanding that he had already told on everybody in that interview by dry snitching. That's what we call it, dry snitching, right? But he had identified all these people and talked about a bunch of stuff. And I mean, he didn't overtly rat. He did not do that. I won't say that because he didn't. But he did dry snitch a whole hell of a lot. So let's listen to this segment, this last segment, and I'll wrap it up with Chino, and we'll continue. With that said, folks, let's hear the last part of the interview.
Hey, Robert.
Yes.
All right, bro. We gave you our time. We treated you with nothing but respect. I have one question to ask you. You said you were going to be truthful.
Yeah.
You're 71 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're in decent shape, man. You're not crepitous. You're not using oxygen to breathe. You're not walking around with a cane. You're in really good shape.
And what?
Okay.
Believe me.
And hold on, and I'm going to give you a chance to talk, Robert.
Yeah.
Me and my partners, we ain't got all day. We're going to get out of here.
Right.
But like Detective Brown said, you're looking at some serious charges, Robert.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of dope in the house,
Yeah.
the bulletproof vest, okay? Dude, you're going to fight this case, and it's going to be 4 or 5 more years before you even take it to
I
a
know
trial,
that. I know
because I
that.
know
I know
you're going to
that.
go pro per, and
Yeah.
you're going to do your research, and
Yeah.
you made mention of some attorney guy. I don't know. You
I
probably,
do have an attorney.
you know,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But let me ask you this. Do you just want to get the weight off your chest and call it a day and just throw the towel in and put all this shit behind you and
Yeah,
be
fuck
done
yeah,
with it?
yeah, fuck yeah. You know, that's why.
But there's a start to it. You got to start somewhere, and in order for you to start somewhere, you got to tell Detective Brandon, Detective Brown, and myself that, hey, dude, I'm done with that game, man. That politics, the mafia, you know, I'm done with that shit. I really want to get out and see another.
Don't you think?
day.
Okay, watch. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Don't you think it speaks for itself? Like I told you, I got the hell away from California. If I really didn't give a fuck about my life, I would go back to the same neighborhood used to live with it. The same game, the same bullshit.
Okay, Robert, I know, and we're being redundant.
Yeah.
You brought that word up before. I know that already.
Right.
But the point that I'm trying to make here, you got to come clean with us. You got to tell us,
No, I don't.
you know what?
No, I don't.
So you're not ready to come clean.
No, watch. Us as individual men,
Hold
we
on.
all have our dignity and
Yeah,
pride.
but Robert, listen to me. You're not. Just tell me. You're not ready to come clean, correct?
No, because if I do that, it's a hypothetical question because it's gang related.
But Robert, you want to have a date. Every inmate in prison wants a date, right?
Right.
Because they want to get out.
Right.
Do you want to get out and see another day of light?
Yes.
You're 71 years old,
Yes.
Robert.
Yes.
You gotta come clean.
With who?
With us,
No,
law enforcement.
What, let me tell you this. As the man, as long as I feel satisfied in my mind and my heart about the way I lived, that's for me to decide.
Okay. But you're not ready to come clean, though, right?
No, I won't answer that question.
You're not ready to sit here and tell us.
No, I won't, because that's a gang-related question.
That's fair.
Really indirectly it is.
That's fair.
Okay, so I'm going to accept that as I'm not ready to come clean, and I'm not ready to throw the mafia.
That's the way you're interpreting what I just said.
Okay.
And I won't answer because...
But that's your verbiage.
No, that's the question you asked me. But I feel the way I understand what you're saying is gang-related. Are you ready to give up, the way you've been living, hanging around with these guys, stop doing the crimes, blah, 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 blah. That's what it means, really indirectly.
Okay.
It's a loaded question. Could mean various things.
So
That's the way I understand
let
it.
me ask you this, and this will be my last question from you. You still want to remain a carnal?
I'm not a carnal.
In good standing?
I'm not a carnal. Once again, I'm not a carnal. And when I use the word term, I tell you, if you ever watched documentaries about civil rights of black Mexicans, whites, there was at one time our different races went to different civil rights, to get civil rights for the group of people. When I call another Mexican, hey, carnal, hey, brown brother, how you been? Again, a Mexican handshake. That means they give me a certain handshake. That means they were politically involved, trying to help other Mexicans get our civil rights. And we didn't have no civil rights to the 60s.
All right, Robert. Hey, check this out, man. I'm sure we're ready to cut this.
Okay.
To cut this short. I mean, hey, once again, no disrespect.
Yeah, no.
I haven't disrespected you.
No.
You haven't disrespected
But you
any of us.
had a loaded
However-
question. It could mean
But
various things.
Robert, as investigators, if I
You have
don't
to.
know, I have to ask.
I
Am
know,
I right?
yeah.
And you respect that, right?
Yeah.
I asked, I tried.
Yeah.
Robert ain't ready to throw the towel in, and I
Yeah.
respect that.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand.
You could see that's
I understand.
That's your interpretation of how I react to what you said.
Okay.
That's your interpretation.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I want to thank you for giving us the time to talk to you.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, I don't.
You have any questions for Detective Brown?
I had question. Believe me, I'm not ashamed to ask.
Any questions for Detective Brandon?
No.
Okay.
It's just that old saying: a closed mouth never eats.
Oh,
A closed mouth never learns nothing.
Yeah. No, you're
Don't
right.
ever. I was told by my mama, don't be ashamed to ask, son.
Right.
When you don't know something, ask.
Right. Right.
A closed mouth don't get fed.
Right.
A closed mouth don't learn nothing.
Yep. No, you're right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the way I talk, you know.
Okay.
That's why I said, hey, let's be honest. We don't talk about honest again. All right. Yeah.
Okay. Are you done eating?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Over past. Yeah.
We're done.
All right, there you have it, folks. Chino peanut butter, alive and kicking. So here's what happens, right? Here's what happens. They have him busted in West Valley Detention Center on this case with Jerry Tapia. They're both arrested. Surprisingly, they mistakenly released them, right? They don't file charges on it. For some reason, they get kicked. I don't know what the technical reason was, but it was a mistake. And Chino and Jerry flee to Mexico. They take off. They bone out. Poof! They're gone. They are gone. And Chino actually moves in an apartment with Jerry. They became roommates. They were road dogs. They were friends. And that's what Chino was there for in the first place. He came to Arizona to visit his buddy, who was dealing dope, obviously. So they go to Mexico. They flee. They're out. And it was a wise decision for Chino. Because had he not fled to Mexico, he would have been indicted. He would have spent the rest of his days, the few years he had left, incarcerated or fighting cases, right? And it turned out to be as a business decision for him, or a simple survival decision for Chino, the very best thing that he'd ever done. because he lived the rest of his life, the days of his life, free. And you know, one of the crazy things about Chino, that they loved him so much that individuals would tattoo on their neck PB legal team with a maklaktomei, which is the 2 bars and 3 dots. It's a Mayan numeric symbol for the number 13, right? They would tattoo it on their necks. In fact, in this one declaration, there's an excerpt here about an attorney that witnessed it and saw it personally on the neck of 2 individuals, including Happy Romero, Arthur Romero. So that's the kind of devotion people had to him. It was almost cultish, right? If you think about it, who does that? You know, people who were devoted to Chino did that, right? And it just goes to show that he was a people person, that he got along well with people, and the people that knew him loved him. They loved Chino. So nobody could ever say that he was not loved, that nobody cared at the end. He died the warrior's death. He went out on his shield in the way that destiny had carved out for him. He died in Mexico as a fugitive, as a wanted fugitive, living with other fugitives, kind of like in the old West days, how the old outlaws would hole up out in a arroyo somewhere, or had a little shack, and they'd all hang out together. Well, that's how it was for him in Mexico. But I thought that little tidbit of information, the tattoos they were putting on their necks, PB's legal team, was very interesting. So there you have it, folks. Chino in Mexico. He passes away in Mexico. He dies as complications from hepatitis. And we're showing you the graphics of his funeral, the carnales that attended. He got a hero send-off. In Mexico, that's kind of the best you can get over there. Nothing like over here in the United States, but the carnales did bury him. They gave him a headstone, or actually a cross, and the carnales did attend his services. And Chino is admired and loved today by the Hispanic gang subculture. Everybody talks about PB, right? He went down in history. He carved out his niche in history, and unfortunately, that was the end of his golden rainbow right there. That's all he wanted. That's all he did. He lived it. He breathed it, and that's who he was. We'll continue with this story, and additional stories are going to involve Chino Peanut Butter. We got a ton of stuff. In fact, this involves so many different carnadas in Mexico and in the United States that I dare say this series is going to go on for quite a while. So this isn't the last we're doing on Chino. It's just the capping of this 4-part series in his interview, which, unfortunately, Chino passed away. But it doesn't mean that's the end of his story. So there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoy this segment. I hope you enjoyed this 4-part series. And as I said, we're going to continue. A lot more to come. But this is his profile. This is Chino's profile. We did 4 episodes on him. And we got so much more. Because this is going to transition. Because Chino had a whole career in Mexico with a bunch of carnales and the cartels and all the deaths over there. We're going to cover it all, folks. We're going to cover all of this. All right, folks. That'll do it for me. As always, stay safe. Peace out.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname